You're watching BionicDance. Don't run on automatic, instead, please think.
So I found myself a wee little Christian boy who's going to make himself the claim that atheism more violent than Christianity. Think so, do ya? Okay, let's do this.
Atheists are always trying to make the claim that religion causes violence. So it's interesting to sort of compare, which is actually a violent ideology, atheism or Christianity.
Meet Christian Tellure. I assume I'm pronouncing that right. Fuck, how do I know? Dude's only got 7 subscribers, but hell, a bad argument's a bad argument, and I've wanted to tackle this one for a while, so here we go.
I think it's interesting that most atheists, almost all of them, embrace the concept of evolution, or the Darwinian model. And Darwinism really made atheism a respectable worldview because it sort of created a creation myth out of evolution and how mankind arose from other species, and it kind of gave evolution a sense of direction, which Christianity had always had, but which atheism had always lacked because there was nothing in atheism to give any answers.
Okay, we've got ourselves a couple of problems right off the top. First of all, evolution has nothing to do with the origin of life. It only has to do with the ever-increasing complexity of life over time. Number 2, there is no actual connection between atheism and evolution. Really, there isn't. You see, the reason most atheists tend to be also believers in evolution is because we tend to be skeptics. We tend to demand facts before we'll believe in something. If the facts aren't there, we're not going to believe something. That's why we're atheists. There aren't enough facts to believe in religion. There just aren't. So we tend to be atheists. There are plenty of facts to believe in evolution. Thus, we do believe in evolution. But your attempt to connect these two things, it's just not there. It's not a legitimate thing. There is no actual connection. It's not my fault that your holy book tries to make this whole origin of life and species being what they are your God's doing, and thus in your mind they're connected. Not my fault. But evolution and atheism, not actually the same thing, not connected to each other. Sorry, just byproducts of being a skeptic and having facts for one and no facts for the other.
But inherent in the concept of evolution is a violent mindset. If life advances and becomes stronger, and new species emerge from the survival of the fittest, that implies the death of the unfit.
So that means what to you? A predator versus prey relationship, necessarily killing and eating something? That's not what survival of the fittest means. Not necessarily. It could be something as simple as, my coat is thicker than yours, therefore I survived the winter better. Or my coat was the right color and it reflected the sun the right way, and so I was warmer or less warm in this tropical climate or something. Or my claws were sharper, I could strip the bark off of this edible thing, and thus I was able to eat more than you, or something like that. It's survival of the fittest, not survival of the more violent. And even if it were about survival of the more violent, so what? These are facts. You can go out into the wild and study what has happened, and you can actually take the history of evolution and look at what happened. These are objective, empirical facts, and they will not get any less true by becoming a Christian. I'm sorry, but this is not a belief system. This is science. So whether you like it or not, whether you're an atheist or not, evolution is still true. So you cannot just deny it by taking on a religion. I'm sorry, even if I wasn't an atheist, I'd have to admit the facts behind evolution, behind the theory of evolution. I cannot deny those facts. So, survival of the fittest happened. it still happens. It continues to happen every day. I mean, there are even species that live and breed and die so fast, most of them single-celled organisms, that we can practically see evolution happening before our eyes. Survival of the fittest? Sorry, dude. It's a fact. Like it or lump it.
And there's argument about whether or not Hitler, for example, was an atheist.
Oh, no, there is not. Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf that he is in fact a Christian. He gave many speeches declaring himself a Christian, and he often associated atheism with Bolshevism, communism, and Jewish materialism. Anyone who tries to claim that Hitler was an atheist is a Christian who's ashamed of being associated with him.
But I think the view that he had was that, the Aryan race is the future of humanity. And, we have to cause, sort of a eugenic, a genocide of these lesser peoples so that humanity can advance forward. And that is an inherently Darwinian concept.
No, this isn't Darwinian. Evolution is a passive process, not a proactive one. And even if it were, again, I showed you before that atheism and evolution, not connected. So, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work this way. You're barking up the wrong tree. And again, Hitler, Christian, not atheist. So you're barking up two wrong trees. Sorry, dude, but you have no idea what you're talking about.
I think another way that you can sort of prove that atheism is profoundly violent is by the ideologies that it's created. Communism, for example, is the direct result of Karl Marx, who was an atheist thinker.
And this is just patently absurd, because communism is a socialist ideology, not an atheist one. Yes, atheism was one tiny aspect of it, but really what it was about was having a moneyless and classless state where you didn't have some massive uber class over everyone's head, and everyone was just cooperating together to try to have a well-ordered society. Maybe it didn't work very well, but you can't say that it was an atheist society. I mean, you might as well say that the United States was based entirely around having a speedy trial by a jury of your peers. That's how much atheism was a part of communism. And you can even look this up. There's a form of communism that allows Christianity. Yeah, there's a Christian communism. Look it the heck up. I'm sorry, but this is just patently absurd. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry, but if you're going to try to say that communism is an atheist ideology and try to use that as some sort of boogeyman to scare everybody about how violent atheism is, you're either lying or you honestly have no idea what communism actually is.
And atheism has never been responsible for a single humane government or humane society in the history of the world, or at least the last 150 years when, atheism has been, an actual concept or worldview.
You do realize that there are schools of philosophy from as early as the 2nd century that actually rejected the concept of deities. Let's see, what was it? The Vedas from the Hindus? Yeah. And I'm pretty sure earlier than that, these just happen to be documents that we were able to find preserved. So, yeah, it's been an established philosophical position for a lot longer than 150 years, douchebag. And even if that weren't the case, I don't think that atheism has ever been responsible for a government. Ever, actually. There have just been governments that have had the rejection of deities as part of their platform, one tiny, minuscule part of their platform, and a bunch of religious fundies who went, atheist government, ooh, be afraid, and used that as part of their scapegoating of those particular governments they didn't much care for. Now, granted, a lot of those governments were rascals, were assholes, and, yeah, did some horrible things, but you can't say atheism was responsible when it was one tiny, tiny sliver of a rather large platform. I'm sorry, you don't get to do that just because you don't like atheism. Doesn't work that way.
But this is directly contrasted. The history, the bloodbath of atheism, the bloody history of atheism is directly contrasted to the peaceful history of Christianity. And, there's lots of arguments about, well, there's the Crusades and the Inquisition and everything like that. But it's important to consider that at its roots, Christianity is a pacifist religion.
Really? Peaceful. Helping others. Sure. Okay. But plenty of violence has been done in the name of your religion, and I seem to remember something about not bringing peace, but a sword in your holy book as well. And plenty has been done in that vein, trust me. And I'm not just talking about the Crusades or the Inquisition. I seem to remember something about not suffering a witch to live, how many witch burnings were done. And there was plenty of violence in Rwanda done in the name of Christianity. Columbus did plenty. Yeah, and I seem to recall a lot done in this century against LGBT folks. I seem to remember a lot of Jews that refused to convert who got massacred. Seem to remember plenty done during World War II that didn't exactly sit well with folks. I'm sorry, but you can go through all these because there are websites, tons of websites. If you look up on Google Christian atrocities, you'll find websites with pages upon pages upon pages. You have to scroll and scroll and scroll to get to the end of nothing but people killed, hurt, maimed, set on fire, executed, whatever, all in the name of Christianity. And you want me to believe that your religion is all sweetness and light? Tell me another one, sunshine, because I don't buy it.
There were no Christians participating in the military whatsoever for the first 300 years of Christianity. Like I said, until Constantine came to power and bound Christianity with the state, everyone was pacifist. No Christian participated in the military. No Christian would push for the death penalty. And they didn't even endorse aggressive or violent self-defense. So you couldn't even necessarily kill somebody in your own self-defense. And that was the first 300 years of Christianity.
Well, then I'll tell you what I'm going to do. For those first 300 years, you guys get a pass. After that, no excuses.
And 300 years is longer than atheism has ever been an ideology.
Well, that's the thing, though. Atheism, not an ideology. Not the way you think it is. It has no churches, no leaders, no dogma, no nothing. All atheism really is you see those religions over there? We don't think they're true, and we're not taking part. That's all atheism is.
But I just want to make a little bit of comparison. Communists managed to kill 188 times more people in the 150 years that they've existed than the Christians did in the 200 years of the worst moment of their history. So it's completely absurd to tell me, or to try to tell me or Christians to argue that Christians are somehow more violent or that ideology is more violent.
Well, again, given that I've already shown you that what you're really comparing here is Christians to socialists and not Christians to atheists, yeah, it's kind of absurd to try to say that atheists are more violent than Christians. Furthermore, if you're going to try to compare the Crusades to, say, communism, well, you have to factor in the difference of the times. You're trying to say that the body count of a bunch of people who had fairly recent technology, sure, technology of the 50s and the 60s and maybe even the 70s, whatever, 40s, is comparable to the Crusades, and thus they didn't have similar body counts. Oh my gosh, who'd have thunk it? Come on, if the Crusaders had actually had, say, guns and bombs and airplanes and submarines and, gosh, tactical nuclear devices and poison and all of this other stuff, I'm fairly certain their body count would have been just as high as the communist dictators. Think about it, dude. So your comparison kind of absurd on its face just on technology alone, never mind the fact that, again, you're comparing socialists to your Christians and not atheists to your Christians.
And so the next time an atheist tries to tell you that religion causes all these wars and devastation and everything like that, just remind them, atheists, 94 million. Christians, in their worst period, 500,000. So, you tell me which is the more violent ideology.
And the prize still goes to religion. Sorry, dude. You lose on this one. You just don't have your facts straight. Next time, look it up, check it out. Sorry. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic like this fellow. Instead, please, think. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. And please visit my Zazzle store, where you'll find all kinds of BionicDance merchandise. Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot. You know what they all had in common? They didn't rate, comment, or subscribe.